Thank you, Claire. Chief Rabbi, Dayanim, Rabbanim, honorary officers of the United Synagogue, and so many distinguished representatives. It's just lovely to be in the company of so many of my big din and rabbinical colleagues who are just such good friends over the years. It's so lovely to be able to welcome you to the House of Lords, which is the next best thing to the House of the Lord. I'm terribly sorry we seem to have the builders in right now, but I hope you'll forgive us for that. You will have heard the bell go as we came in, and that was the call for division, whereas we are the call for unity. So that is nicely done. And it is lovely to see every one of you without distinction, but if I can just say especially how delightful it is to see many of the presidents of the United Synagogue with whom I worked for so many years, and it was just a privilege to work with you. What a privilege it is to see what a sign of good health being involved in the United Synagogue is, because we have with us, bless her, Stella Lucas, who in 2 months' time will celebrate her 104th birthday. Stella's late husband, Victor, was a president of the United Synagogue, and Stella looks exactly like Rashi says about Sarah, that at 100 she is as young as at 20. So, Stella, it's lovely to have you with us, and lovely also to have a long-time member of the shul where I was first a rabbi in Golders Green, and a long-time board member, Lord Monroe Palmer, who now is Deputy Speaker of the House of Lords, where he discovers that keeping lords in polite behavior is a lot easier than doing so in a shul. So to all of you, welcome. Friends, as you know, as Claire has just said, it was here in the Houses of Parliament that the United Synagogue was born in 1870, 150 years ago, brought into being by an act of Parliament. What the connection between this and Parashat HaShavua is, I'm not entirely sure, since we're going to read B'Shalach, which is about the division of the Red Sea. However, the Midrash says that a Roman lady once asked Rabbi Yossi bar Chalavta, how long did it take God to create the world? And he replied, 6 days. So she said, and what has he been doing since? And Rabbi Yossi said he's been Yoshev u'Meshadech Shiduchim, he's been sitting and arranging marriages. And she said, is it that difficult? And he replied, yes, getting two people together is kasha ki kriyat Yam Suf, is as hard as dividing the Red Sea. Now, if it is that hard to get two people together, think how hard it is to get 5 shuls together, which is how the United Synagogue was born. That is certainly a miracle on the same level as the division of the Red Sea. And that is what renders the United Synagogue unique in many ways today. Of course, 60 communities, but stronger and younger than it was 150 years ago. And I just want to single out 3 things that for me make the United Synagogue special. Number 1, did you all watch the BAFTAs? Yeah, with how do you pronounce it? Joaquin Phoenix and Prince William, about diversity. You want diversity? Go to United Synagogue. I mean, United Synagogues are diverse. You see more division here, more unity in the United Synagogue. The fact is that in the United Synagogue we provide a home for the most learned, the least learned, the most observant, the least observant, and we're all friends together, and that is extraordinary. You go to other shuls, they all wear exactly the same make of black hats. Have you ever noticed this? Or you go to shuls where they're all German and they're all exactly punctual. Or you go to a shul and they're all Chabadniks and they're all waiting for Mashiach. Somebody once said, what happens when you cross a German with a Chabadnik, and answered, a Mashiach who comes on time. But the truth is that the United Synagogue is what I call inclusive orthodoxy. It welcomes everyone non-judgmentally, and that's important. Secondly, there's a very interesting story. I don't know if you're aware of it. In America, they created a rabbinical seminary way back in the 1880s called the Jewish Theological Seminary. It was then Orthodox. The first musmach was J.H. Hertz, who became Chief Rabbi Hertz. But then it kind of drifted a little bit. And in 1902, they took a rabbi from England, from Cambridge, Solomon Schechter, and made him head of JTS. And in 1913, Solomon Schechter created a movement of shuls called, based on the English model, the United Synagogues of America. But there was one difference between the American thing and the British thing. The American thing did not strictly keep to halakha. It allowed all sorts of stuff that we wouldn't allow. Today, that whole movement, which is called conservative Judaism in America, is imploding because they lack one word, mitzvah, a commandment. You do something because we should, not because we want to. And that one word that is missing there, we never lost. We stayed faithful to Judaism, to halakha, and to Jewish faith. And the result is today we are strong in the way that the American movement is not. And thirdly, the United Synagogue is so much more observant than it used to be. Do you know where the idea for the United Synagogue was born? It was born in the sukkah of Chief Rabbi Nathan Marcus Adler in 1866. Dan Binstock was kind enough to give me in St. John's Wood a machzor from Anglo Jewry in 1866, a sukkah's machzor. Do you know, I read through this entire machzor, and you could not tell from this entire machzor by one word that there's such a thing as a sukkah on sukkahs. Do you know why? Because in 1866, the only person who had a sukkah was either the rabbi or the shul, and they knew the bracha anyway, so they didn't need a book for it. In those days, nobody had a sukkah. Very few people had a lulav and estrog. Very few people could lead a service. Very few people learned. And today, all of those things happen because the US stuck to its principles. It refused to compromise on two things: its commitment to Jewish law and faith, and its commitment to inclusivity and openness and welcome and non-judgmentalism. So it became one of the great synagogue movements of the Jewish world, and it becomes greater every single year. So happy 150th birthday to all of us, and may we all continue to get younger every year. Thank you.